Hey guys, Joe Miles here with Osseo Gear. This is the Mission Whitetail Podcast. We're going to be doing a deep dive into what it truly takes to kill these mature bucks. We're going to step outside the box and look at the why for gear, tactics, training, and more importantly, the mindset from over 35 years of chasing these magnificent animals all over North America. Thank you for following along and welcome to Mission Whitetail. Boys, welcome back. Episode 41, Mission Whitetail. Got my good buddy Kris Seymour on with us today. Kris is Kansas. He owns BEOUTDOORS Real Estate. They specialize in hunting property, ag land in Kansas. He also owns Seymour Bucks, an outfitting business. Been doing that a long time. Kris and I met years and years ago. Matthews Dominant Bucks, became buddies, and been hunting with Kris out in Kansas ever since. Kris was on earlier in the year, or maybe last year. It was pretty early on in Mission Whitetail, probably like first 10 episodes.
Yeah. Good to be back. Good to be back.
Yeah. Good to have you back. And Flint, your son, killed an absolute giant, pushing that 200, maybe even over 200. And you just killed a nice one in Oklahoma,
that's right. No, it's I'm sitting here, I'm looking outside the office, and it's exactly what you experienced last year around the same time, mid-October, cold front. People are excited. It's been a long, dreadful, hot September and August. I'm so sick of hunting in 90-degree weather. I'm so done with it. And then I go down to Oklahoma. It was supposed to be 50s and 70s. No, it changed. It was still 90s. So it was brutal, but it's happening right now. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, we're inside and I need to be out there getting stuff done. But this is the magical time of year. You just got to love it. Cold front makes it better.
Yeah, that, 90s, I mean, that's all South Carolina. I actually sat this morning, 70 degrees, mosquitoes. My first morning hunt of the year was this morning. So season update on my end, I went up, like I think I went up to Ohio. Two things, I made a post about this earlier in the week. 3 things I learned on that trip. Have you hunted a bunch of hill country, like big hill country?
No, but I'm sure this is going to lead into thermals.
It is. And I mean, there's millions of things online about thermals and blah, blah, blah. So yeah. Get into that, but this is just
it's a different mindset. Like, people don't understand, like, if you're hunting hills, it's not flat Kansas part. I mean, and where I'm at, you can encounter some of that, but
yeah, I mean, this was, I mean, I've hunted some rolling hills and hunted some hill country, and, basically the thermals are a big problem, and you just look at it as how water would fall, how water would drain through the valleys. But I had this thing set up for a perfect southwest sit, but I was nervous because there's 2 big bluffs on either side of it. And sure enough, I got in there, puffer bottle out, dadgum, blowing perfect right where it needs to blow. Out walks 2 does. She gets directly in front of me and hits a brick wall of my scent. She calms down and keeps on feeding. But she smelled me. So I pulled out milkweed, dropped it. It blew 10 yards up the hill, just like the wind was supposed to go. And it hit the thermals and did a 180 and shot right back out from under my climbing sticks into the little plot. I mean, it was nuts. So, I mean, the moral of the story is, if I'm gonna hunt that, it's gonna have to be in the mornings when the thermals are rising, or either get on the other side of the plot with the wrong wind and hope the thermals do.
I had a spot in Manhattan, Kansas, Flint Hill on each side. And so you either got to hunt on top where it's a true wind, but if you want to get anywhere where those oak draws are, you're going to battle with exactly what you're talking about. And I remember I had a stand figured out on a southwest wind, or whatever it was the wind would go opposite. Like, if I was coming on a southwest, I would go hunt it and anticipate it going southeast, and it would, and I could get away with it. It just, it's definitely different type of mentality of when you go in there, and it's tough, you know.
And the point is, you've got to go during hunting hours. You can't go in the middle of the day. You got to go during hunting hours, and you might blow up a hunt during season and figure it out. So maybe it's the next year that it works.
Yeah, and that's every elk hunter's daily report. The wind got me, and that's what you're experiencing in the whitetail. But I'm telling you that the way that those the wind can change. The gusty days are the worst, like, because when the gust hits, you know, that's when you get your swirl, obviously. And we were actually hunting last night on a hang and hunt, and it was 20 to 40 mile an hour, crazy south winds, front was coming in, and you could just tell every time it gusted up, you'd watch a leaf go and twirl and then go this way. And so you're kind of playing with fire. But I was, like you said, I was kind of learning to see what it was really doing if we went out there. And rest assured, we didn't get what we were after, but it was a good, we're ready. We did the hanging.
That's
changing topics a little bit, but you know, but that's the nice thing about how you and I have grown up, using whatever tree stand mobile you want. You know, you can just go when you got to go and get something hung in a hurry, you know.
Yeah. No, that's right. The other thing that I learned, well, I didn't learn, I knew this, but I think it's good to bring up, and you will, I'm sure, second this. I've got a cell cam in that valley that doesn't get real good service. My pictures come in really weird. Like, it'll be 7 o'clock at night and I'll be getting 7 o'clock at night pictures. And then voila, I'll get a 10 a.m. picture from that morning. So, and the reason is the service is so bad. When that happens, you're not getting all your pictures through text or through email. So I went and pulled, the main point was going up there to pull the SD card. And sure enough, that big, I had like 3 pictures of that big deer. There were 2 other days he had been there that I did not get one single cell text picture, but he was on the SD card.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I those cameras, man, they're just such a mind effort on a lot of other scenarios, but that's definitely one of them. And it also is sitting there just draining your battery every time it's searching for those signals, you know, and you can't get solar deals with the canopy of the leaves this time of year. So it's just old school checking cards, I guess, unless you got one of them cameras that can Bluetooth to it if you're in a certain range, so you don't have to walk in there. But yeah, they miss them. They miss them. Even when they got good service, I think you miss them sometimes.
And you pull those SD cards. You got some free time or whatever, middle of the day, whatever it may be, pull the SD cards, check them. And I think that, I know we're going to talk about Flint's buck. We're going to talk about your buck, but I think that segues right into kind of the main topic today is the great bait debate, as well as where hunting is headed as far as technology and that sort of stuff. And you being an outfitter, you know, I mean, you get brownie points, or you get rewarded, I guess. Maybe that's the wrong word, for the success your customers have, right? So, you know, it's a fine line, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you know, you and I have had this conversation many times about where hunting is headed with the bait, the cell cams, the crossbows, on and on and on. So fire away. Let's hear it straight from Kris Seymour's mouth.
Well, and we'll talk about Flint's hunts, but part of my motivation on that hunt was like, let's go kill another big one, just to prove that it's becoming less and less of a big deal to kill a big deer. You just got to have one to shoot because of the cell cameras, the bait, the crossbows, you know, however you want to scenario it. But you know, Kansas right now, I mean, it's a hot topic. I'm sure you've heard. Like, I mean, there's people like they're losing their minds because they just can't. I don't know what it is. They don't care about overall health of the herd. All they care about is I got to be able to shoot a deer over a corn pile or a feeder, and maybe the studies, depending on what you believe. I know, you got people that are all over the board with CWD. This is better for the deer. But you can't argue with me that all those critters coming to the same spot, spreading whatever disease, coons, possums, deer, multiple deer, that's really that great for deer. But as far as technology, you get that mixed in with it. It just, to me, it's just becoming just like life. Nobody wants to spend time doing anything. Instead, it's just instant results, and that's what it's all about. I don't want to spend a week hunting. I want to spend 2 days and go in and kill. So, and to each his own, whichever is legal now per state. But there's no doubt that I think we've lost our way. I mean, it's the cliche quotes now are, is he daylighting? He just showed up. It's just funny. It's like, he just showed up. Is he daylighting? He isn't consistent. It's just like,
that's on your pile.
Yeah, those are the conversations. And then let me show you a picture of this and that. And not even just baiting, like just cell cams alone. Like, and we talked about this, I think, a little bit last time. We've lost the surprise factor. We expect it because the camera is saying you should expect this at this time. And I think that, again, that's taken away from what hunting used to be. But at what point is enough enough? If you got 40 acres and you got 20 cell cameras on it, I mean, like, what's really happening here? It's like, you really want to know where that deer is 24/7 at all times to go in and kill them. And I get it, but it's like, you're definitely flirting with the fair chase when you know, and I don't know what the limit is, but it might be 5, 10, 15, 20 cameras, but on a small track. And then, I mean, how many people do you know? Like, there's 15 cell cameras on 20 acres. I mean, I don't know, but it needs to be revisited, whatever is right and wrong. I do think if you want to go on a traditional hunt like old school, Kansas public hunting has gone back to that. There's no baiting, there's no cell cameras. Go hunt and surprise, So I just think, man, that's where you can go get that fixed. But private land hunting, I don't know how you're going to win that battle, good or bad, or however you see it, but it's definitely a hot debate right now. And I got a feeling the people with the most money are going to win.
That's how it always goes. But I mean, you're absolutely right in the fact that the cell cams, I mean, I look at myself, like I've hunted. I mean, take the Ohio trip, because I did sit twice in Ohio, one afternoon, one morning, and take away this morning. I had sat 4 times. I had killed my first buck the first time I sat. I got blown up by the landowner the second time because of a bulldozer. He was right beside me working on a food plot in a bulldozer. The third time I hunted, I saw the buck I was after. I couldn't get him killed. And then the fourth time, I didn't have luck. But basically, 2 encounters with 4-year-olds, and that is all because of cell cameras, without a doubt. Now, I had to put them in the right spot and that sort of thing. But crossbows, I think there's a place for crossbows, right? I'm not going to sit here and bash crossbows. I think youth, it's a good tool to get them started. Although when I was coming up, we had to get to where we could shoot a rifle, right? We got to go with dad and watch dad hunt until we could manage a rifle. Now we want our kids to have it easy. I mean, I look at Jack, my son, I've got all his spots set up, and he looks at the cell camera and he'll go get in the stand when something's quote unquote daylighted, like you say.
Yeah. Yeah.
versus earning it like when we were young.
Yeah.
So, and then the older guys, the older guys that can't pull bows anymore, for them to stay in the game, they've got to, they don't really have a choice but to use a crossbow. So I can see the youngsters, I can see the older guys that physically can't pull using a crossbow, but this excuse to use a crossbow to hunt during bow season when you can shoot 100 yards with these things. I mean, it's the technology in those things is
It's mind blowing.
it is mind blowing.
It's a
And these
cross gun. There's no more bow about it.
no, and these it's muzzle loader, right? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's what muzzle loaders used to be when they had a muzzle loader season. And
Yeah.
a lot of these guys are completely capable of pulling a regular bow.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and to me, like you said, there's a place for it. It just, like for Kansas, you talk to the game wardens, their rifle season's nothing anymore. It's nothing like it used to be. Everybody's got a crossbow and they're hunting a rut, or hunting early season. I mean, the crossbows and that's the other problem with non-residents trying to draw tags in Kansas. The crossbow guys absorb all the archery tags. I would say it's got to be like 70% or maybe more. You walk into Walmart or whatever sporting goods store, all you see is crossbow accessories, and then they got this little tiny part for archery. It's like they just want to weed it out. Again, it goes back to, I don't have to practice. Crossbow's dialed in, pull the trigger, scope, rifle, whatever. And it needs its own season. I believe they need their own, just like muzzleloader. Make a season for it. I don't care when it is, or just blend it in with the gun seasons. But yes, if you're healthy, and there's just no reason for it. Otherwise, wait for the gun season. But ultimately, you just got to look at the future. Everybody cares about what's now, and it's like, if you want to continue to have great bucks and stuff, you can't be just continually to make it easier and easier to kill these big deer. I mean, a corn pile, a cell cam, and a crossbow in Kansas, I don't know how you can't shoot your target buck unless you just haven't done the proper setup,
Yeah.
because it's easy. It's become easy, if you got the right setup.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, I think that the bait argument will be bait helps the little man, right? The guy that's got 30 acres next to the 2,000 acre managed hunting property that's got food plots and, no pressure. And the little guy that's got 30 acres, he can put him out a corn pile and he's got a chance then. So I think that's maybe the devil's advocate side of the debate.
Yeah, but on the reverse side of that, it's the guy's got 10 acres, 30 acres, and he can kill that buck on just what and then you're over here with 160, 300, 1,000 trying to manage deer, putting food plots in, and this guy has done no habitat work, nothing to improve the deer hunting. All he has is a feeder and a tree stand. He's going to kill your deer, and they're not your deer. I mean, but you know what I'm saying? It's like I see both points, and those are the people. If they ban the baiting, like you said, the edge hunters, and then it becomes, well, if I don't bait, or if my neighbors bait, I have to bait. Otherwise, they suck all the deer, and they absolutely do. I mean, before gun season, I have to go out on some spots and keep some corn piles going or feeders full just to keep deer from leaving to get shot, or at least level the playing field.
And it's easier for the deer, right? I mean, the deer, they've got constant food. They don't have to go out and that can't be healthy, right? Because I mean, if they're hitting a corn pile every single night and then all of a sudden that corn is gone, I mean, they've lost some of their, when it gets bitter, what do we do? Where do we go? How do we find food? I mean, we've had it, the entire time. I mean, it is definitely a debate, and there are two sides to it. And it's going to be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, cliche, what is best for the deer herd? And that should just be up and foremost, not as what is convenient or best for somebody to shoot their big deer. It's like to keep this game going, to make everybody happy, what's best for the deer herd, the deer. So they're not just over harvested. Or I mean there's some properties just on the real estate thing. They ban baiting. I mean, there's some guys that have spent $2,000, $3,000 an acre over what it's really valued because it has big deer on it. So you take away the baiting, they can't grow food plots. It's like that land they bought just got devalued back to regular cow pasture prices.
Right.
I mean, so I get that. That's where I think the lawsuits will come in. Like, I bought this recreational property based on big deer, and you just took that away, and now it's just a cattle pasture, and I can't grow a food plot to save my life. You're in some dry part of Kansas, and so but it's like, so start doing something, plant some trees or whatever you can do to help improve your hunting. But yeah, and to be honest, I can't believe, and I read a little bit, like the Livestock Association hasn't come in to really side with the banning baiting, because there's so many farmers that are losing ag production and cattle pastures in the state of Kansas, and probably it's happened to other states too, to where they kick the cows off. Everybody hates cows, and I mean that can't be good either. Ultimately, in a world that coexists with beef, and I'm sure there's a statistic out there of how many thousands of pasture ground that's lost to deer hunting in Kansas, and they're either going to get taxed more, but again, I think the Livestock Association people would be banging on the door of banning baiting just to protect their asset, and having ground to graze, because people don't want it, so.
Yeah, it is fascinating where it's gone just in 15 years. I mean, just in 15 years, my dad, he was an absolute beast of a woodsman. He doesn't know what a tex cam is or anything like that, but and he would kill a couple nice deer every year. It just the
Dude, my first 10 years of outfitting, and we could have baited, we just didn't. It was just like, you just go hunt. Oh, I saw this. We would take video cameras, and that's how you documented your hunts. But you planned on hunting for a week or 10 days, and you grinded it out. And and then you got to make those split moment decisions. Is that a mature deer, or whatever you want to harvest? But yeah, you didn't have inventory to where everything, so nothing's a surprise. And again, you can always have a surprise buck roll in, but you know what I'm saying. It's like that whole surprise factor is just gone, and grinding it out, it's more of a plotted assassination than a hunt.
Yeah. It's an execution. You're executing a deer. It's not really a hunt anymore.
Yeah. I have 80 acres behind my house, and last year I committed to, I'm not going to run any bait. I'm not going to run any cell cameras. I want to go back to how it was and just hunt. Now, I manage some ground in the area next to it, and those guys want to do their thing with bait and whatever. So it's like, I can't control that, but I can, on stuff that I own. So it was interesting. I had some great hunts, and I loved it. And I just didn't know what was going on. But I had a lot of 4-year-olds strolling through back there. And it wasn't till one of the 5-year-olds I was looking for, he might have been maybe 6, but until I put that corn pile out for gun season to help detour some of the neighboring pressure, or at least level the playing field, then the big ones show up. And I'm like, and I don't want to say big, but they were definitely the older ones I was looking for, because I had some really nice 4-year-olds a lot of people would have shot, but I just wasn't going to do it. And one of those bucks, he came in, the one I was really looking for, I had his sheds from the year before. He came in on that pile, didn't eat off of it, looked at my camera, and he was gone.
That
And
was, yeah, go ahead.
but this is a long story, but where I'm getting at is, so then I got one other picture of him, like late December, just again, supplemental feeding, late, gearing up for whatever, winter. Wasn't really hunting. That deer showed up at 2 a.m., ate like for 3 minutes and left. So those are the only 2 pictures all year. I actually thought he got shot during gun season, because I had cameras, regular cameras that you check cards, not a lot of cell cameras, out all over just to get in weird spots for trails and just to learn new stuff. And never had a picture of that buck. Make a long story short, I had 2 feeders, and this is the property next to me, with that were a quarter mile apart from each other. Ran them basically from gun season and on, and he never hit either one of those feeders. And we were shed hunting with my son, and I find his shed. I pick it up. I'm like, oh, I found. I really thought the deer was dead. I found his last year other side, and I went, wait a second, that's this year. And then I found his other set, and then I basically found 3 of his antlers within that quarter mile. So basically, he was there all winter and never hit those feeders. Never. He's avoiding the cameras, and you just got to think, man, will the deer pass that genetic on, and will they start wising up to the stuff? That's the other question. Like, when will they know that a camera is danger, or a corn pile? And some of those bucks are still out there, far and few between, but it was really refreshing to see a buck that smart again, and avoiding the pressure.
And that was something that I was going to ask you, because how long have you outfitted? I mean, 20 something years?
22.
Okay, 22 years. So and you're in Kansas, big buck state. You're in a great part of Kansas. You interact with big deer every single year for 20 something years, way more than the average guy, way more than the average hunter, way more than a serious hunter. I mean, yeah. Because it's part of your business. The big mature 5.5, 6.5, 7.5-year-old bucks, as a whole, not the odd flyer here and there, will they come to the corn in daylight?
Yes, I think ultimately corn is king.
Okay. Next,
that one buck that I just told you about was an exception to the rule, but really, if I would have been in that blind with a gun, you could have shot him.
Yeah.
Second day of gun season. But actually, I think there was a doe in heat, which is why he was there, which is the other reason. The does come to the corn pile, bringing the mature buck to get shot.
Yeah.
During the rut.
And is there anything from a habitat, from a land perspective, or from your experience, this synonymous or something that tips you off to mature bucks? If you were going into another part of Kansas, based on everything that you've learned in, day out with these big deer, is there something in particular, one thing or multiple of things, that you would look for?
Yeah, I would say CRP, native grass, is one. Okay. Like, everybody when people call looking for deer land, they all want trees. And, as well as I do, all you need is cover about 3 feet tall, 4 feet tall to have deer. You don't need trees. And that CRP, to me, it just, deer can grow old with it. It's the ultimate bedding. They hide in it. Timber you walk through, very rarely is a buck going to just crouch down and let you walk past him. CRP, and this is coming from the bird hunter of me, you jump up multiple deer in CRP fields that let you get within 10 yards till their breaking point, or they let you walk by. We were on a pheasant hunt one time, doing what 20 yards apart, going through a thicket, CRP, and a big buck. All the does were blowing out. The buck was crawling on his knees back through the drive. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, and he knew, but like I said, that CRP, I don't know, 4 foot tall native grass. I mean, that stuff to me, if you got that in your, next to your property or on your property, that the deer just, it's once it gets cool, they live in it. Now in the summer, they want that shade and the timber, but to me, that's a key ingredient to some big whitetails.
Yep.
On top of the obvious stuff, food and pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. So CRP, that's what you would look for.
Yeah. And that's, the conservation reserve program, or just establishing your own native grasses. So big blue stem and stuff like that.
Yeah. All right. Let's completely shift gears. Let's talk about Flint's buck and Flint's hunt. Guys, Flint is Kris's son. He is 16 now.
Yeah, he is
16. Man, he's growing
crazy.
up.
Yeah, he's a sophomore. I've pushed him. I wasn't one of those guys that held his hand up when he was 3 years old shooting deer with a crossbow. I waited.
I'm gonna get some hate mail on this crossbow stuff. I got some buddies that are crossbow hunters that are gonna listen to this, and I know.
I don't know. I would be a total hypocrite. With my kids, crossbows were incredible and still are. I mean, heck, Flint and Trinity both killed with crossbows last year. I mean, and again, it's they got sports, and you can only go when you can go, and you got to have something that's an efficient killing weapon, and that's what it is. But back to Flint. So yeah, so he has some experience. He's on the Valley Falls trap team, so he's a wing shooter, and he's shot a perfect 25 the other day, which was pretty awesome. But I do think that gun handling on the trap team, just side note for kids, man, it gives your kid a world of maturity around firearms and shooting situations. I mean, if you think about it, going in, every other weekend or whenever they practice and handling them guns, and it just transfers over to crossbows. And there's been scenarios now where turkey hunting or whatever, I just know that he can make that shot, muzzleloader rifle.
Sure.
So anytime you can get your kids around guns safely, it's just the more experience, the better. So I started him. I think he was 8 when he shot his first buck, and we've done a lot of corn pile hunting out of blinds. We started switching to some gun hunting just whenever I could get on. Any of the kids get older, the schedules get busier. But this summer, I actually had a medical thing going on. I had a blood clot in my leg, so I was on a blood thinner, and that's a whole nother story I'm not going to get into. Everything's good now for now, but it's always a scary situation when you have a blood clot. And I was like, I'm going to need you to be the muscle for me I've seasoned him enough to hang trail cameras. Stands we're working on, but I want him to think like me. I need you to go put this camera out on the scrape or whatever on this corn pile, and he knows what to do. And so this deer shows up I had a picture of this deer last summer, and I felt like, okay, this is where the deer summers. And I let the deer go. He was probably 4.5-year-old, I think, last year, but well over 170s, points going everywhere. And I actually had my recurve buddies coming in to hunt that area, and just some other clients that were coming in to hunt too. And so I just was like, the deer's there, and I left. I left the camera up. It was definitely a booner. And sure enough, Rocky shows up, which is my recurve guy, and And I don't know what he shot last year in that same area, but we still don't know if it was that deer. But he cripples a buck, and it looked very similar to this deer. Well, then the neighbor gets a picture of this deer late. I'm like, and we didn't find Rock's deer, and it's a confusing whole other story. But basically, the neighbor had the deer. We knew he was alive. So this summer, I went in. I put the camera in the same spot, see if this deer shows up. Sure enough, boom, he's there. I looked at Flint, and I'm like, "Do you want to chase a big one?" And he was all about it.
I bet he was. Yeah.
He was all about it. He was like, and the deer was just impressive. So we put some corn out, had a mineral hole, and the deer was just, I mean, we were in his bedroom, like right next to it on the edge of a bean field, food, water, creek, secluded. And so I'm like, all right, it's strategy time. So I think he and I went over there. Man, it was like after, because I couldn't do anything. I couldn't lift over 20 pounds, which is what got me the blood clot in the first place. And so I couldn't do it without him. Then he had football, it's August. So we leave after practice. We go over there. I mean, who goes over somewhere at Deer 30 to hang a stand? I'm like, we're just going to blow it up. We'll see if, we'll see if the deer's around. And we go over there. I hang a double ladder stand and a lone wolf to video out of. And it's more for the youth season that was coming up, Labor Day weekend. And basically, we got in position. Everything was set up. We're sawing, making noise, leave there. 40 minutes later, deer shows up on the cell camera. Like we were never there, and I'm like, okay, so we didn't screw anything up that bad. So then opening day comes around, 90 degrees. The deer was not living on a corn pile. He didn't have to. I mean, beans, all the browse in the world they could ask for. It was lush there. And it's kind of funny because every time I drove in, I was looking at the bean field. I'm like, oh, we can cut across the beans here. So we parked about a half mile away. And I kind of knew he was bedding on the east side of the farm. But there was beans always crossed to the west side of the farm, but we were just going to blow that up, give that up, whatever. That's how I was going to park, walk through. So I'm like, let's take this shortcut through the beans. We start walking through the beans. And it felt like a horror movie where the vines start grabbing your ankles. The beans they came up to my neck. And I was like, I had no idea they were that tall. Like it just didn't look that tall. So 90 degrees, trekking through beans. And I'm like, this is an issue. I mean, and plus I'm wearing compression socks because of the blood clot. And I'm like, this is hot, man. This is hot. What are we doing?
90 degrees, buddy.
90 degrees. I'm doing a workout now with compression socks on, sweating, and that's like the worst thing you could do. Anyway, so I get in the stand, I take my boots off and try to cool my legs off. And we're not in the stand 40 minutes. He's getting his rifle ready, he's looking around, and sure enough, I look over and I see the buck in the beans
that you had just walked through.
We didn't walk through that part, but in front of us, 100 yards away, I'm like, there he is. He was bedded in the beans. He let us walk past him, but it was 4 foot tall beans. It's kind of like the CRP effect. He's just going to lay there, even if he heard something or didn't. It was pretty south wind. We needed a south wind, so that was our access. We get in there. The buck stands up. You could see he just shed his velvet like that night or that day. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to happen the first night. And we're freaking out. All you can see is his rack. And then it dawns on me that we're not going to get an ethical shot on this deer because the beans are just too darn tall. He starts moving, kind of quartering, like walking away from us through the beans. I actually ended up naming the deer Jaws. So, because it looked like a shark going through the waters. His rack was the dorsal fin. And so that was the joke. It was like, dun, 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 dun. And there he's going through the beans. And you're just watching a potential 200-inch deer just walk right out of your life. And it's just you had 30 minutes to dark. broad daylight, and he's going through, and I'm filming him, and I'm like, this just ain't gonna happen. And we literally let him. By the time he got to the other end of the field, it was 210 yards. He then, you could see his head and a little bit of his neck. And I'm just thinking to myself, how many guys would throw a shot at that head and neck of that deer thinking they're never going to see that deer again,
Of course, yeah.
and do something stupid. But, you know, obviously youth hunter and experience, I'm like, it's not even an option. We're not going to do it. But we had the same scenario on a buck 2 years prior, muzzleload season. We belly crawled through beans to stalk a buck. Same thing. We get up there 90 yards and we can't shoot them because the beans are too tall. So I was reliving that encounter. Buck walks out of our life that night. We slipped out of there. He never even, the corn pile is there, but we had some Big and J on it too, but he's not even really interested in that. In fact, he wasn't even on the camera for 2 days. But I'm like, he lives there, we're going there. And now we know why. He's just living in those beans. So the pile helped keep inventory, but the beans and knowing where he lived in bed, like that's what it was all about. So we went back immediately into the next night. I don't know, thinking maybe he'll breach the beans where we can shoot him. Didn't see him. I think we put in a total of 8 sits on the deer. Youth season ran out. We saw him one other time during youth season. He come from the timber to the east into the beans, and we had like a 5-second window for Flint to get on him and shoot him. But again, it just 220 yards.
Yeah, I suppose.
It just wasn't conducive. And by the time he got in him, he dropped in the beans, and it was sea of horns. Just, you know, you just couldn't get another shot. So we had to drop down. There was a creek behind us and slip out of there with him like 170 yards from us. And so I truly believe the deer never knew he was getting hunted. You know, even though we were in and out of there all the time, it just, we never got snorted, winded, everything was perfect. I ended up, part of the strategy, instead of, remember we learned the lesson of cutting across the bean field. I said, screw that. We drove around the beans. I said, you know what? I'm going to park the truck directly behind us along the edge of the beans. There's a slight hill. So that's like a block for other deer, so they don't come from behind us. It's part of my strategy. Let's blow this up. Let's make it known that deer don't want to be here because there's a human presence. But then everything else in front of us where we're hunting is where they want to be. So that was definitely strategic, not just for an easier walk when it was hot, but it just helped out. But anyway, so youth season ended. We had to switch to muzzleload season. So Flint was in school, and I'm like, I got a CVA muzzleloader, and it's good to 100 yards. You know, it's not like some 1,000-yard muzzleloader or whatever. And I had to go back in. Flint was in school, and like I said, I had him busting butt on the first setup. I was feeling better, but he was, you know, running the saws, trimming, hauling everything. So I had to drop the ladder stand strategically in the back of my truck to where I didn't really have to use my legs. And I picked a new tree up to get a 100-yard shot, basically across the bean field and to the pile, like whichever one the deer, you know, was going to show himself. And we had another 4.5, maybe 5.5-year-old buck that was running around. It was a real nice, I'd say mid-50s deer with a small little draw time that anybody would have shot. But, you know, we just kind of kept our eye on the prize.
Yep.
But that deer was like, if you want to use a word of consistent, like he was owning it, you know, and the bigger deer, he would come in and out, but he was just more like living in the beans. So it was muzzleload season. We took a shot. I got a new stand location set up, and it was our 8th sit. Again, it was 90 degrees. And I remember I was mentally broke. We went in there hot again. I'm sitting there in the stand. My back started aching, and I'm like, dude, this is
getting old, Seymour. We're getting
not
old,
even
buddy.
November. And it definitely, part of it was because of the summer I had and not being able to get use the summertime to keep in shape for hunting season. But it was just, you know, a little humid that night and miserable, and I'm just like, man, I'm starting to break, you know. But he wasn't. And lo and behold, so here comes the buck. He breaches again. He comes out, this time out of the CRP. There's a little bit of native grass before it gets to timber, but straight across from us from the east, same type of pattern. Comes out, he's 150 yards, walks into the beans. I'm like, we know this story, how it's
Yeah.
gonna end. Starts walking towards the beans, eating. He's getting closer by now, but now the beans are starting to lose the leaves. So they're turning brown. It's, I think it was September 18th, maybe. And I'm like, you know, I can see his back, Flint. Like, can you see him? You know, we're whispering. And he was he was lower than me. I was standing up in a video stand, and he still didn't feel comfortable with the shot. And again, it was 130 yards. I didn't want to take that shot. And I'm like, man, how, and then all of a sudden that deer lifted his head up, and he was going away from us and just did a 180 and decided he was going to start moving towards that pile and just starts beelining across the beans in front of us. And I was starting to melt down, like, oh my gosh, do I need to stop him? You know, and I'm like, what are we going to do here? What, you know, Flint's just probably like, shut up.
Yeah.
I'm on them, just wait, you know. And so the deer, and now the last 30-yard stretch where he was walking, he's like visible. And I'm just like, holy crap, this is going to happen. And, you know, he got to where he finally stopped, and Flint just put it on him. And I was videoing, and he shoots him. You could tell the deer was hit, mule kick, looked like a perfect shot from the naked eye. And the deer ran about 30 yards back into the beans and just stood there. And I'm like, you know, you're kind of like, what the heck? And then he did the death tornado into the beans, and it was celebratory then. So,
Oh man, that is awesome.
but the way it ended in the hunt, I mean, we earned it. You know, yes, there was a cell camera involved. Yes, there was some bait involved, but you learned a lot about the deer's habits, the way it went down, not taking a stupid shot. I mean, there were so many positives from that hunt, and the reward was obviously just incredible. And the deer was just bigger. You know, it's just one of those like ground growage situations, but it was just a truly unbelievable experience. And to shoot him the first day, the first 30 minutes in the stand, I mean, obviously that's incredible, but you know how it is.
Yeah, you work for it, and plus, you know, I've driven your outfitting circuit with you. I mean, the work that you put in to keep everything going is monumental. And you know, Flint was working his ass off, you know, all summer. So he got an opportunity. He deserved it. Yeah, that's where I was going with that. And Lucas, let's remember to throw a picture up on the YouTube of this, of his buck. So guys, if you're listening to this on like Spotify or one of the Apple things, you can go over and watch it on YouTube at the Mission Whitetail YouTube channel and see a picture of this deer. Well worth it. So we'll throw that picture up on the YouTube video. Yeah, just an incredible story, well deserved. A kid that worked his tail off all summer, and you know, killed a giant. And you have not spoiled him. I mean, you know,
no, he's killed his fair share of cull bucks and taken one for the team. And I did not want to be the dad that's like, you know, every year my kid's killing a booner or whatever. You know, I got to satisfy a lot of people, and so you got to spread it around. But this time it was his turn, and like I said, it was well deserved. And he's taken care of all the spots, all the feeders, all summer long. And even he wasn't breaking. I mean, we got into the stand that night. I think it got dark around 8:15. And you know, we're leaving football at 6, like hauling butt, 20-minute drive. And you know, it was just, he could have said, you know, I don't feel like going tonight. Just got my head kicked in. I mean, he's a linebacker and a tight end, and it just is like he was still focused, and you know, I was not pushing him at all. It was like, let's go. I'm ready. Let's go. Let's go.
Awesome. That's so good. It is, man. You know, we've got listeners of all ages, guys with young sons, guys that are older, in my experience with Jack, doing the hunts with him. I mean, and the things my dad did with me. I mean, it's all, man, it really is the tradition and the family and getting the kids out and passing on what we really love to do.
Yes, yes, it is fun. I probably hunt more with my kids now than myself. Well, I'd say that. I guess it's definitely a balance, though. It's a good balance. But back to the mature buck thing. I mean, I got 8 hunts in on that deer to study his habits. So every time we went out, you learn. And I'm like, why is this deer here? And why is he bedding in the beans? And you could tell the beans started turning. He relocated his bedding, but I don't think he had more than a 250 yard circle, man. I don't think it's very big for those deer that time of year, especially when it's hot. And the creek behind us ended up going dry. I mean, we're on like, that was another motivation. It's like EHD, let's go kill this deer before he dies because of the stupid drought. So it has been bad in Kansas. It's still bad here. And I hear few reports popping up. But just all those factors of studying that deer was awesome, because I think a guy could go, like, I got that figured out now. It's like everything's banked. Okay, this is why he's doing this, and it's kind of an every other day thing, not every day for him. And you learn a lot about the deer when you can go out and put that kind of time in and figure it out. But I would feel confident that if I had a muzzleloader hunter, we'll kill a deer here every year. This is in beans. We just got to figure out, how the height of it. And then what's weird is it was a drought, but we still got enough rains that the crop was actually pretty good.
You got the rain at the right time.
Yeah, but there was no runoff. There was no filling the creeks and all that. So anyway, great hunt. I don't have them officially scored, but I think we're going to. And there's a lot of questionable measurements that I just could go either way. So before I just throw in numbers out there, I'd kind of like to get somebody else's opinion on it. But it's flirting the benchmark, which is just a bonus. But it's like, why not? Let's see where he's at. So I'm going to have it officially scored by our local biologist, who's a Boone and Crockett score, once it finishes the drying period and all that. So
Awesome. That's great, man. Congrats to Flint. Heck of a buck. He earned it. Good hunt. Another little pearl of wisdom to stack away. You get another scenario like that. And that's the experience of going out and actually sitting and hunting and not relying solely on the text cams, the cell cams.
Yeah, absolutely not. Like once, and I was just down in Oklahoma, and it's like, once a good deer is in the area, it's like, you're hunting there. Like, why do you have to have that reassurance of, I could see maybe if you had it on trails and you wanted to know, but I can't tell you how many times guys have dictated their hunt off that camera and it's burned them, instead of just going with your gut and just, keep the cameras out of your mind. But that deer was not, he was not a everyday corn pile kill type deer. He was a little different. So.
Yeah. And I was telling Lucas the other day, every morning I probably spend an hour to an hour and a half going through text cam photos. Imagine what yours is like.
Yeah. Well, but I honestly, I got more this year than I've ever had, which still isn't probably enough. I mean, I have enough. Actually, I kind of enjoyed my routes where you pulled cards and checked stuff, because it was always like a surprise, Again, back to the surprise, but I guess the surprise is you wake up in the morning, you're like, holy shit.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
That's the new surprise. Look what just showed up now. But yeah, it definitely is a gas saver and a time saver, especially, I'm spread out over 5 counties, so it's like, well, you drove it, part of it with me. We call it running the gauntlet. Like, let's go see what we got. So, and I'm getting ready to do that this coming week. But it's not so much more enjoyable when it's not 90 degrees, when it feels deery out. So I'm looking forward. I got a bunch of hunters coming in. the October 30th through, the first week of November, and it's going to be fun. We got a lot of great deer showing up on camera. I've got a few spots I'm concerned about with some EHD kills, but other than that, I'm pretty impressed so far what's showing up on camera. It seems to be a really good growing year anyways. So
Good.
lots of big ones showing up. So that's
Yeah,
good.
I can't wait to get out there. I'm looking forward to it. It won't be long.
Oh, you're coming out here?
Yeah. Yeah. All right, all right. Like always on this, we keep switching gears, but we're kind of on the technology thing, and you mentioned something earlier about Rick and traditional and recurve and rock. Um, and I've picked up. I talked about this a little bit on the last podcast with Adam. I picked up a recurve, and I'm getting one built right now too. And I've gotten infatuated with shooting that bow and learning to shoot it. There's so much to it, and it's a total game changer, and it's going kind of back in time, if you will. And I have found that to be alluring. Tell me, you and I talked a little bit about this the other day. Those guys hunt different, right? They're not sitting on corn piles. They are. Tell me, or tell the guys listening, these recurve guys, how they're doing it, what they're doing that's different, and kind of walk through that, and then we'll kind of wrap this thing up. I know we've been going for about an hour.
Yeah, what I notice about them and to their success is they come in peak rut and they plan on hunting all day. Like so you got to have that kind of mentality. And then with the recurve, it's like, I only need to shoot 15 yards, maybe 20. So I've hunted with them in Canada. I've got some of their setups, and I'm sitting there going, I can shoot like 12 yards, 3 directions. Like what good is that going to do me?
Yeah.
But that's their mentality, is that's all you need. My mentality is, well, I could have killed that deer that just went by at 30. I need a lane here. And I like, but I'm telling you, they're into bucks. They get Kansas rut, peak rut. They get into the thickest cover they can find, and that's what they hunt. That's huntable. Like if you got trees, but that seems to be their success, and seat time to go with that. Like they're out there all day. And when guys want to book a hunt with me, I'm like, if you can't handle the 10 to 2 window and sitting, the majority of the day, like, do not come after the 10th of November.
Yeah.
If you're a 2-hour morning, 2-hour at night guy, you need to come pre-rut or first week in November, because that's when you got to go during the rut. But we have the big ones just come out of the woodwork, the 10th through the 20th of November, and but you got to plan to hunt. But I think their strategy, going back to that, it's not high off the ground because they don't want steep angles, and they also don't have crazy shooting lanes. I mean, it's very tight-knit stuff and quiet gear and clothing. Now Osseo decked out, and they're just like I said, they're just passionate about it, and they practice and they try and get the close shots, is which I think you need to have consistency of harvesting for the recurve.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of woodsmanship plays into that too, right? I mean, they're looking at pinch points and
yes,
funnels, real.
Yeah, when I say they get in the thickest cover, they're hunting bedding areas. And I think that time of year, that's what you got to do. A lot of guys are sitting on the edge of the field and they can see 100 yards in one direction. And that's great for transition rut hunting and stuff, but you got to get into the bedding areas and then figure out how to access them, and where they're funneling through or sitting on a trail in the wind and all that. But that's where they're going. And these deer in Kansas, they just don't like to break cover a whole lot, it seems like. So you want to be in the cover, so whatever that is. But
that's awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it. Your hunt, Oklahoma, you killed a good one out there.
Yeah, it's a different hunt. People always make fun of me. You're leaving Kansas to go hunt 130s in Oklahoma, and and you can kill big deer down there. They got them. They're killing some really hammered deer. I mean, but and one of my good friends, he's also a client, does a lot of real estate investing. He's got, I don't know, like 3,000 acres he manages now, and it's the most target rich, fun hunt you could go on. It's a great warm up, and I just appreciate a change in scenery. And you know how it is. If it's home, I don't care. I'm still going to work, but if I leave, you still got internet. I can work, but it's just different. I'm not. I'm a little bit more relaxed. So it's a great early October hunt. Went down there, got on some mature bucks. Well, the spot I was hunting, a different mature buck was cycling through every night. There was no consistency in the area I was hunting, whether it was by water or feed. So that was interesting. Like they're in they're starting to search phase, it looks like, down there. And I saw a little buck starting to fight and get warmed up. So you can tell things are, this cold front that's hitting now. I mean, it's going to get interesting, but great hunt down there. I shot a 6 point, which I started thinking, I'm like, I don't know if I've ever shot a 6 point, but he was a really wide, big, mature 6 point. And I'm like, that's all I could ask for on a hunt like that. I don't need to shoot some giant. So it was a great hunt.
Yep,
So
that's good. Well, cool, man. We appreciate it as always. We'll do it again soon. And yeah, I'm looking forward to getting out there in the land of Oz and seeing what's around.
yeah, we need to get out to one of our little honey holes out west there and make sure everything's freshened up and see what's going on.
Yeah, I'll get some text cameras out there and
Yeah,
my crossbow will be ready to go.
that's it. That's it.
All right, man. Appreciate it.